Welcome once again to the National Newspaper Publishers Association. We're grateful to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for providing the resources for the NNPA to have a national education public awareness program. Our focus is on how to close the education gap that exists between African American and other people of color students across the United States in the public school systems, but also in higher education. But right now, we want to focus on the public school systems. We're pleased to be joined today by Dr. Patricia A. Edwards, distinguished professor at Michigan State University. And Dr. Edwards, you have a long career in education matters. Give us your first overview of how you see the situation. Because of the coronavirus, is the education gap widening or is it narrowing? What's your sense?
I think the education gap is definitely widening. And I do think in a lot of schools, especially here in Michigan, they did not have good connections with families before COVID-19. And of course, they know that schools cannot and would not exist without parents, and you don't choose the parents that you work with. And I think now more than ever, they are realizing the importance of family engagement, that every student in a class represents a family, and they need to make those connections. I know some years ago when I first came to Michigan, I worked with a school and I said, you need to do a demographic profile because this school was built in 1952. In 1952, it was an all-white community. In 1990, when I went there to that school, they did not have the same demographics. And I do think people need to realize that not all parents are the same. Not all parents are the same, and we don't have the picket fence and two children, a dog and a cat, and the stay-home mom. And I think some schools think of families that way.
Exactly. How do you see, I know a lot of school systems, because of the virus, are engaging in distance education. How is it in Michigan, and what is your view across the country about distance education with African-American students and parents? Because of course, distance education means that the parents got to be more involved because they're at home with the student.
Well, that's true, but in a lot of communities, it's not the parent there, it's another caregiver. And I think COVID came up on school districts so quickly. And I think it has a lot to do with what zip code you live in. And so if you're in a zip code where all the parents have to work in order to make a living, it might not be clear what is happening with the children during COVID. I mean, this semester I'm teaching interns, and so our students here at Michigan State do a 5th year, and they're in 5 different school districts, and they all tell me different kinds of things. And so some of the children don't sign on when they're supposed to, or sometimes there are glitches with the online ways of doing things. I think teachers have had to reformat and think about other innovative, creative ways to teach online versus teaching face-to-face. So I think some of those, the kind of grouping that teachers would normally do, the kind of one-on-one instruction, I think that's complicated by COVID. And it really becomes a problem when there's not an adult there to really guide the child.
Can you talk about, I know one of your specialties is reading.
Yes.
Can you talk about the importance of the 3rd grade reading test across the country and our performance of African-American students being able to pass this test?
Well, I have been, I challenged some of the legislators here in the state of Michigan about the 3rd grade reading law. It's another way to really put children of color, another thing you put on their head about the 3rd grade reading law. And to be honest with you, I have said that they shouldn't even give the test this year because, people always talking about the summer slump, reading slump.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
now we're going to have a baby slump because these kids have been out of school since March, and we have no clear idea as to when they're going to be going back. And so I think sometimes people give tests to say that they are leveling the playing field, but what they're actually doing is creating a gulf and creating more of a divide when they give these tests. And of course, we tend to know who is not doing well. And I think when it comes to reading, we've had so many different ways in which we've taught children of color, and there's been so many mixed messages of how to make those connections. And
Yeah.
so I think when it comes to that third grade reading law, it might sound good and equitable and fair, but I do think it's very divisive. And I've talked to the state superintendent about that too.
Good. Well, speaking of demographic changes, Michigan is one of those states that is still undergoing demographic changes. I know, particularly in the city of Detroit.
Yes,
but,
it
but
is.
but the thing is, given the demographic changes and given the prevalence of people of color students all across the country now in public school systems, do you see any of the systemic changes that kind of make adjustment for the demographic changes? In other words, are school systems culturally sensitive as they should be?
Mhm. Well, let me say this. I know we're not specifically talking about teachers, but I know for the last 25, 26 years, Michigan State's program has been ranked #1 in the nation. And when I first came here, Judith Lanier was my dean, and she
Yes.
was talking about teaching for conceptual understanding. And I said, Dr. Lanier, we cannot teach for conceptual understanding unless we conceptually understand something about the people that we're teaching. For the last 30 years that I've been here at Michigan State, most of my students are young white students. Like even this semester, I have 17 young white females, one African American female, one Asian female, and one Asian male. That is the teaching profession. And so I put forth the argument that can you imagine finishing medical school and you've never learned how to deal with a patient? Well, if teaching is a profession, we need to collect data because we're in a data-driven society. So some years ago, I wrote a book entitled A Path to Follow, Learning to Listen to Parents, where I have parents talk about their literacy histories because teaching is connecting. So you can't just walk in a classroom and start teaching. And so that has worked really well to show teachers how they can understand the literacy histories of the students that they're teaching. And let's say, for example, you go to the hospital, you might have two senior doctors in the room with 4 residents. Well, I argue that in a school, you have teachers who've been teaching for 30 years and teachers who've been teaching less than a year. So why can't we have these co-generative conversations? So, because sometimes people tend to put of color in beginning teachers' classrooms. And I personally think it takes 3 to 5 years to figure out how to teach. And so to me, I have been pushing that agenda is that we need to collect data about the students that we are working with. It's not the tourist curriculum where we look at how they dress, what they eat. We have to understand their literacy histories and figure out how we can make those connections. Just as doctors collect family histories, lawyers collect depositions, architects collect a lot of information about our lifestyles, we need to connect that information, and it needs to be done on a year-to-year basis because children's lives change.
Yes. In another taping, we have the decline in black male teachers,
Yeah.
or black female teachers too in some places.
Hmm.
How can we recruit more African Americans into the teaching profession?
Well, that is really an interesting issue because a lot of people that are teachers have not encouraged their children to go into teaching. And I know it's not that we are liking students of color in this state, but going into teaching, I mean, in fact, some years ago, we even had a grant where we were targeting students. We say, grow your own. And still students can come and be in the program and decide that they don't really want to teach, or they don't want to teach in the communities in which they left, which can also be an issue. So I do think we need to do teacher recruitment. I think our best bet is to have someone who has been in another profession. Like one of my former graduate students worked on Wall Street and she majored in economics down at the University of Michigan. She's a person of color. And she decided that she would come back and go into teaching that way. But that is an issue, is how do we get more teachers of color? Of course, let me say this to you, some of my colleagues that are not people of color will argue with you that the teacher doesn't make a difference. I've been involved in some really combative arguments
Yes.
about that, because they'll say you don't have to be of the color of the student in order to teach. And I push back. I said, there are some things that you don't know. Like they just had this conference that I was involved in. They had a Black Lives Matter. And of course, the white people were all excited about what they were listening to. Well, I grew up in Georgia. Nothing that was said that I didn't know anything about, because as a child, I mean, I met Martin Luther King in my backyard because they would come down there because Dr. W.G. Anderson lived right up the street from me. So C.B. King and all of those people. So I do think that it's more than just the material. I do
Yes.
think it's the connecting that we may have to make with our children. I mean, sometimes what a Black teacher would tolerate from a Black boy in particular, they might get sent to the office because of the same thing. So what you bring to the situation has a lot to do. And children know very early on whether or not teachers like them or connecting with them. And so there are some things. I mean, I work with my white teachers because I wrote a book on social equity teaching. And when they are writing their lesson plans, I'm looking to see what's in those lesson plans. And sometimes they get upset, and I tell them that's a human emotion. Get over it, because they don't know where life is going to take them. Um, so you might not be teaching people that look like you, sound like you, agree with you. And I do think we have to show teachers how to understand different ways of thinking and learning, because a lot of times I find that a lot of people that are teaching our children have not met people that don't look like them sometimes. And so
Exactly.
when they go into those spaces, what they think is a problem is not a problem.
Well, you mentioned the importance of the teachers connecting with the students that they teach,
Mm-hmm,
and vice versa. It's a relationship
mm-hmm,
that's built. Now that we're in the midst of this pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, um, distance education puts the teacher even further away from the student. So, how would you assess the impact of distance education because of the virus on students of color?
For one thing, I wrote a book entitled New Ways to Engage Parents. And so I feel that we live in a technological society, and there are ways that they can connect with their students via Zoom. Because one of my students did her dissertation, she's working with people all the way over in Korea, and she's dealing with Zoom. So like Flipgrid and some of the innovative ways. I mean, text messages, almost every parent has a text message. Doing short videos. Those are ways. So just because they're not in a school situation, there are still ways to connect with the families. You can give them a morning message. I believe in a scope and sequence of parent involvement built around the curriculum, making sure that parents understand what it is you are trying to teach in your class. And there are all kinds of ways that teachers can model with all the videos they can send. I mean, even this summer, I took a class on how to interface with my students differently because I'm teaching completely online. and I have conversations with them. We text. I leave messages like or our platform here at Michigan State is Desire to Learn. It's called D2L. So if a student has written something and I can go into their um, lesson and give a message. But now let me say this to you. Then again, it depends on the school district and what kind of technology they have. So if a school district, if technology is available and schools don't have it, then some kids are going to have it and some kids are not going to have it. But I do think that school districts have to think in new and different kinds of ways in the situation that we find ourselves in.
Um, Social media. A lot of our young people today are very much involved in social media, and some of the parents are also,
Mm-hmm,
as intergenerational.
mm-hmm.
Uh, from your perspective, can social media help enhance the students' engagement with the curriculum, with the text, with the subject matter of the course, or sometimes do you think social media is a distraction?
For one thing, I think the young people are digital natives. I mean, my students know a lot more about technology than I do. I think it depends on what it is. If it's Facebook, I mean, like I mean, we do have Facebook groups with our students. I don't deal with my students on Facebook or Twitter, but I do think there are some types of technology, because that's just the world we live in,
Yes.
that can be very supportive um, in in a curriculum. And so it depends on what kind of social media you are engaging with the students on.
Right.
I mean, I mean, students can play games, they can do all kinds of things, but I do think that technology has to be carefully selected. I know there's a whole body of research on, do students comprehend better with technology? It's kind of up in the air and sort of divided. What are students reading? Because people can post anything. So I do think people have to be careful with what's posted and what their students actually see.
Right. I like the term you use, digital natives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes um, there may be a generation gap where Generation Z and millennials have a different take about the use of technology. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I think sometimes that a lot of young people in the classroom, as they are in distance education, may be more technically engaged, digitally engaged
Mm-hmm.
than the teachers. So
Yes, we are.
the extent to which that we can have more digital involvement in the delivery of the educational subject matter in the curriculum and foster some type of digital relationship with the student, rather than things being divergent. There may be a convergence of engagement. But it's how you use technology.
It's how you use technology. Like for example, nobody in my class has paper and pencil. Everything is iPad. In fact, every freshman that comes to school here has to have a computer. So it's like, where are the books? I mean, I still like to read books, but that's the world in which we're living in. Of course, every professor here was like told to take courses in technology. Like, there are some things I know about technology because our master's program has been completely online. So I have people in my class from China, and now they are Americans who teach in American international schools, Korea, Germany, China, they're all over the country. And I tell them, if I'm going to meet with them, it's going to be 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I don't care if they have to be at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm not getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I do think, I know at one point when cell phones first came out, and almost every child has a cell phone, people didn't want them to use them in class. Well, that created a problem because you either let them use the cell phone or they're going to use it anyway. and they're going to be doing text messages. Like nowadays in a classroom, students can take pictures of you, they can send stuff to the administration, and they can do it in real time. So you can't tell them to put their phones away. Even small children, they use their phones. So I do think that most of the young teachers coming out will know a lot about technology and how to engage students.
Very good. Your insights are very helpful, Dr. Edwards. One of the things I wanted to ask you before we close, from your perspective as a distinguished professor in education, what are the three most important things we need to do to close the education gap, particularly for African American students in the larger society?
For one thing, I think from the time a child enters school, we need to make sure that that child arrives in school on grade level. So we need to make sure that we focus on early literacy development. So when a child comes to school, they are not coming chronologically 5 and developmentally 2. I think we also need to look at parental literacy. Even though we are the richest country, in my opinion, in the world, we still have a high illiteracy rate. And one of the first big projects that I did that got the recognition of First Lady Barbara Bush was a program that I did called Parents as Partners in Reading. And what I discovered at this particular school is that 40% of the parents couldn't read. And so I think we have to drill down on that. I think we have to also work on equal funding because there is a funding gap. And so with, I mean, schools have to have materials, they have to have teachers that want to teach at those particular schools. So I do think the great divide is funding, who are we teaching? Because let me give you an example. I wrote another book called Partnering with Families for Student Success. And, you know, when people think about parents, they don't think about incarcerated families. They don't think about homeless families, low literate families. So there are a lot of different kinds of families coming into school. So I would be asking teachers to look at who are you teaching, because where you teach, who you teach has a lot to do with the success of students. I mean, I teach in a privileged environment where by the time I teach a student, I don't teach undergrads. I basically teach graduate students and those interns. Well, they are the successful students. And so I do think that we really have to look at who are we missing. And that's what I discovered is that there was a high rate of illiteracy in this country.
Very
We
good.
don't talk about it, but it's there.
Yes. Well, we may want to follow up with you about that issue, Dr. Evans, because literacy, reading literacy, financial literacy, there's so many issues that we need to try to overcome in the African American community and other people of color communities. But I just want to thank you for this time that you've spent with us. But you've raised some significant issues. But I already know we want to follow up with you. Now you held up those books that you've written. Are those books available digitally? How do people get
Oh
copies?
yeah. They can actually, Teachers College Press has published 2 of them. I can shoot you an email. I can send it to Dr. Primus. And
Okay.
so yeah, and in fact, the book New Ways to Engage Parents, that particular book got a national award from I think it's Delta Kappa Gamma. I had never heard of Delta Kappa Gamma. It was started in 1929 at the University of Texas. And when I checked on it, it was an all-white teachers group. So when I won the award, I said, this book must be really good because we had, you know, this group, and that book has done quite well. And I just won a huge award on Friday. I won an Oscar. It was called the Oscar Causey Award. And I was the first African American reading researcher to receive that award. And no other African American had ever received that award. So I thought, wow,
Well,
maybe I have arrived.
congratulations.
Thank you, thank you, thank
Congratulations.
you.
And Stacy, I know you're listening, but I want to do an article about this award that Dr. Edwards has just received. That's very good.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
And look, we want to stay in touch. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for your commitment. And on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we're very grateful for your service.
Well, thank you so very much. This is an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to talk to you about some of them days down in Georgia also.
Okay, that came from Albany.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association, a special workshop for our virtual NNPA 2020 Midwinter Training Conference. We're especially thankful to all of the participants today. I'll introduce everybody, but our focus this afternoon is on digital sales. We've had other workshops on digital advertising. That's what the market is trending toward. All of our newspapers are still printing, and we're also complementing the revenue from print sales now with digital sales. There's a multi-billion-dollar market in digital advertising, and we want to make sure that our member newspapers in the National Newspaper Publishers Association, our media organizations that are members of the NNPA, that we take full advantage of the opportunities to sell digital ads. And so we have a distinguished panel that we put together, and all the members on the panel have had experience in selling digital ads for the Black press of America. And particularly, we want to, in this hour, go over some of the best practices that each of our panelists have learned in their own markets, in their own settings of business, so that publishers from around the country and editors and other salespeople that work for the Black press who are listening to this broadcast will also be able to glimmer some of the jewels that are going to be dropped over the next few minutes. So I want to thank each of you on behalf of the NNPA, our chair, Karen Carter Richards, and our chair of our planning committee, Terry Jones. We had discussions. What is it that the publishers really want to hear during this midwinter training conference? And right at the top was, we need help making sure that our salespeople not only know the nomenclature, procedure, what are some things that really work effective in getting digital ad sales for our member newspapers. So that's our focus over the next few minutes. I'm going to first introduce everybody, and then I'll call on everybody to make a response to a very simple question. That is, from your perspective, what are some of the best practices that you have learned in your shop? I first want to introduce Deidre Malone, who is working as a digital salesperson for the new Tri-State Defender in Memphis, Tennessee. Deidre, welcome.
Thank you, Don. Thank you so much.
All right. And then next, I would like to go to Tanisha Leonard, who's at Real Times Media. And Real Times Media, led by Hiram Jackson, and Tanisha covers a broad cross-section of different market footprints. The Michigan Chronicle, the New Pittsburgh Courier, the Chicago Defender, the Atlanta Tribune, and the Atlanta Daily World. Did I leave anything out, Tanisha? But welcome.
The Chicago Defender?
Who?
The Chicago Defender?
Yes, I've said Chicago Defender,
And the
absolutely.
Michigan Chronicle. So
And
yes, thank
Michigan
you for having me. Glad to be here.
Thank you. We appreciate your work. Next is Randy Fling from Rolling Out. And Rolling Out is sort of was ahead of the curve in terms of digital ad space. And Randy is one of the key, not only decision makers, but facilitators and innovators at Rolling Out. Randy, we're glad to have you.
Well, thank you for having me today. It's great to be here. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. And then from the West Coast, our brother Brandon Brooks, representing the Los Angeles Sentinel as well as the LA Watch Time. Brandon does a lot for the Los Angeles Sentinel, and he's going to bring some of his expertise, what he's learned from digital advertising, to this panel. So Brandon, welcome.
Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor and just great to be part of this prestigious panel. So thank you.
Very good. And then last but not least, our chief salesman for the NMPA. He also is a salesman for the Washington Informer in Washington, D.C. And that's none other than Ron Burke. Ron, welcome.
Hi, how are you doing? And thanks for having me. I feel honored to be in this group. I should be, I'll probably learn a lot today.
All right, very good. So Deidre, let me just start with you from your perspective there in Memphis. Not all of the best practice, but what would you say is the number one thing that you would like to recommend to other publishers to make for their salespeople, when their salespeople go out to try to sell digital ads? What do you think is one of the most important initial things that a salesman needs to do to sell a digital ad for the new Tri-State Defender, but broadly speaking for the Black press?
Dr. Chavez, again, thank you so much for allowing me to participate. And, you know, the new Tri-State Defender is not so new. We're 70 years old this year. And so very proud of that accomplishment. But one of the first things we tell our sales team is you really need to understand the business that you're going after and their target audience. For example, our readership has traditionally trended older because of the print edition. But now we know that more and more, because of the types of articles that we're writing, it's very social justice focused, that a lot of our readership, be it online, through our social media platforms, are skewing a lot younger, the millennials. So what we try and tell our sales team is understand that business that you're going after, their specific target market. And if they really just want a print ad, let's do an added value and show them the benefit, right, of doing digital across our platforms. So we do a great deal of that. And what's traditionally happening for us now is those clients are seeing the value in that digital ad and saying, we want to do more digital. As you know, we're looking at it because we're really trying to bring people in. So that's one of the first things I share with our sales teams, knowing who that client is, what their target audience is, and if it skews younger, then we know we need to pull them in on our digital platforms.
Right. Do you have special training sessions with your sales team after
We
you
do.
offer this guidance?
We do, Dr. Chavez, and what's really so exciting about it, and Calvin Anderson, who is our president and publisher, is participating as well, is we have young folk who are, you know, our social media strategists, who they're coming back and they're saying to me, hey, Deidre, what about those small businesses? Can we create bundles for them? And so one thing that we've started to do is the TSD Tuesday, where we're targeting small businesses that may have, you know, $50, $100, $375 a month, and showcasing them on either one of our social media platforms or our website, but looking for those opportunities to target those small businesses and then grow them as a part of our TSD family.
Very good, very good. Tanisha Leonard, Real Times Media. You have 5 different publications. I know the Chicago Defender is all digital now. Talk to us from a sales perspective, how you get your sales team trained and how they go out and implement to get digital sales for all of your properties.
Absolutely. In addition to the Chicago Defender, the Atlanta Daily World and Atlanta Tribune, the magazine, are also now all digital platforms. So, you know, this is absolutely a tremendous focus, you know, for our businesses and the survival of those outlets. as it relates to going out and selling the properties, I think is expounded upon what Deidre was saying. You know, in addition to knowing our customers' audience, we have to know our audience. We have to sell the value of who we reach and the loyalty that we bring through advertising through our platforms. Because in a lot of cases, especially with a lot of the larger customers, we aren't going to get the traffic statistics of some of the other competitive products in the market. So what we have to sell is the loyalty and the ambassadorship that our audiences bring, that goes along with the legacy of our brands. We absolutely also make sure our salespeople, you have to understand what the numbers mean. It's nice to be able to say, I can deliver you 250,000 impressions, but beyond that, we think it's critical that you understand which areas of your digital platform are driving those impressions. If it's certain content categories, maybe that's right for a customer. It's not just putting up a banner ad, it's really understanding the drivers of what makes your digital platform successful.
Great, great. Brandon, out of Los Angeles, what is the number one thing you've learned thus far about your sales team and how to sell effectively for the Los Angeles Center and for the Black Press in general?
Yeah, and thank you again for having me today. It's just a complete honor. As Ron said, I'm here to learn as well, so I'm soaking up everything I can learn. But yeah, I think the one thing that I've learned is similar to print is just making sure that we're valued and that our value, it can't always be as analytical as the client would like. But what I do appreciate about digital sales is it is by numbers. So it's kind of a catch-22 in that sense. But I guess what I mean by that is, unfortunately, we all know that we're always fighting to be valued properly, get the proper dollar for our basically the value for what we're worth. So a lot of times what I make sure is that we're reintroducing ourselves to clients now to let them know not only have we been around for 85 plus years.
So
this
excuse
is
me
what we
1 second. Ron,
have.
you have to put your phone on mute
I'm sorry.
because we're recording. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, basically what I was saying is with digital sales, we just want to make sure that we're basically articulating to the client who we are. And we have to reintroduce ourselves. So a lot of what my strategy has been over the last 3 to 5 years is meeting with these agencies and saying, you need to understand who we are, not only our history, but who we are today. So this is how we reach a consistent audience and how we've survived for 85 years. So there is not only a valuable audience, but as Tanisha said, and Deidre said, we're now reaching younger audiences and we're reaching new clientele and seeing that other publications are fully digital. I'm sharing with clients that, hey, you're missing out if you're not taking out an e-blast, if you're not taking out a web banner, if you're not finding the Black readers who are, finding us on the web. I think some of our traffic, which I don't mind sharing based on stats, is I think about 85%. The last I checked of traffic was coming through mobile and not desktop. So just learning these types of things. Now we're in the midst of doing a kind of a reformatting of our website to be more digital friendly, to understand that these phones are now taking over the desktop experience. So everything is changing every day. But I think, again, the main thing that I would say to salespersons and even myself is just not losing the value of reaching the Black audience. We reach not only, middle class, but the affluent audience of Los Angeles, a plethora. So we're not monolithic in that. And I think that is valuable. And we have to continue to drive that and not be undersold. So just my little take is I don't like taking a low CPM, and that's another discussion, but I think we have to understand what we're worth. And as a collective, I think we can demand more in that.
Very good, very good. That's a good segue to Randy.
Absolutely.
And rolling out, share with the panel and with our audience what you've learned from a rolling out perspective of effective selling digital ads.
Well, the first thing I've learned is that this is a pretty smart panel you've assembled, because they have hit on some very important messaging, each and every one of them that I've seen so far. And I agree with it. No one has said anything that I'm not in 100% agreement with. I will say, even to Brandon's point just now about low CPMs and what you do and don't take, I think that the more you know, Like if you're looking at your Google Analytics or you have somebody on your team that's looking, because what I know is Google Analytics now has demographics built in. So it tells you, you know, the percentage of people in each age demographic, for example, as well as your gender split. You know, you don't have to pay anybody when you tell, you know, some people want you to spend money on research to tell you who your audience is. And of course, obviously, you know your audience on one level, but then if they want numbers, I suggest that we always use Google, because who's going to argue with Google Analytics when you say, well, my Google Analytics say 30% of my people are between 25 and 34, and I've got another 31% between 35 and 45. So it just depends on who you're selling. I say use the statistics that are available to you, like Google. Even with us, we know we have a majority female readership. Well, that's because Google is telling us that. And Google isn't perfect, but nobody's ever questions it in terms of using it for your sales purposes. I would also say social. Try to use your social media. When people talk about are you engaged in your audience that you have, when you can reflect back and say, of course, they're very engaged, and they, you know, we get these many comments, we get lots of conversation on our social, and those are the same people that are on our website. They are an engaged audience that's paying attention to what we say. Those are the things that I think are very important that you're telling any advertiser. And lastly, I would say right on down to when you're dealing with a local company, let's say a restaurant, let them know that you have the capacity to run their ads from, you know, morning until 3 o'clock. Maybe they close. They're a lunch restaurant. You know, you can stop, you know, and I'm sure everybody on here has an ad server. And everybody who's going to be listening to this, I should say, has an ad server that can actually do that. So, you know, you might want to let them know you're looking out for them. They're a restaurant. You're not going to run ads in the middle of the night for them. You're going to run half the day during the hours they're open. Those kinds of things are little things that people know that you understand their business a little bit better, which I think Tanisha alluded to as well. So.
Gotcha. Let me ask you something that Brandon alluded to. How often do you update your website, just in terms of the way it looks, the feel, and can you explain the importance of how the website functions in relationship to selling digital ads?
Absolutely, that's good. They've done studies, I know, and they say the faster your website loads, as just one across the board thing, if your website loads fast, that's helps you build your traffic. They say every second longer it takes for your website to fully load, 5% or 10% of the people aren't going to stay. So then when you look at your numbers later on, you're not going to have as high of numbers as you could have. The mobile is another thing in that you should look for Google, Lord, not Google Ad Manager, AMP pages, what they call AMP, Accelerated Mobile Pages. It's free, but somebody has to set it up for you on the back end if you've got WordPress, because those pages will deliver really fast, and it's really Google that's delivering it for you. And they're doing that to make web pages fast on mobile phones. We have 90% of our traffic now is actually mobile. So obviously we have to pay attention to what do our ads look like on the mobile phone, much more than we do what do they look like on desktop. So in terms of refreshing your website, I would say, you know, once a year is probably good for actually changing things. You know, you don't necessarily want to change, you know, you want new content, but you don't necessarily want to, you know, I don't think there's a need to change a website a lot, you know, definitely not more than once a year. And we probably take a little longer than that even before we change ours. It's just, you don't necessarily win by making a change. But if it looks dated to you, it probably looks dated to somebody else.
All right, very good, very good. Ron Burke, are you still with us?
I'm here.
Okay, share what you've learned. You know, you out of the national office of the NNPA, you run into a lot of clients. I think it would be helpful, Ron, if you would share with the panel what some of our major advertisers have told you as a salesperson. What is the trend in 2021?
So I'm not as well versed in digital as the rest of the panel, but I consider myself to be a lifelong salesperson. And some things do not change, right? So I feel that I can sell anything, but I need to know what I can deliver. Okay. So that is so key in digital ad sales because, you may get a client that's going to say, oh, okay, I want 250,000 impressions, which is a low number, but we'll just use that as an example. So first of all, you got to figure out, can you deliver 250,000 impressions within the time frame that they want to deliver? So you've got to know your inventory. That's one thing. The other thing is that you have to constantly provide good customer service. And I don't care what you're selling, you should need to always provide good customer service, right? Meaning that the client is going to want analytics. You've got to make sure that you have something in place to get those analytics to them. But before you deliver those analytics, you should know what the numbers are. You have to be constantly checking to see, are you hitting the required numbers or requested numbers, right? If you're not, learn how to make adjustments so that you can. Or if you're over delivering or you're pacing too fast, then you have to throttle back, and then you constantly have to keep reaching out to the client, again, the customer service, to just make sure that, everybody's on the same page. The other thing that I will say too, while we're talking about digital ad sales, and I'm pretty sure everybody on this call will attest to this, before you can think of, okay, clients are going to want results, all right? You can sell all the ads in the world. If the website or the social media platforms that you're selling those ads on do not have good content, do not have engaging content, nobody's going to pay attention to those ads. You see, so you have to make sure that, your ad sales are in lockstep with your editorial team and that you're providing good, engaging content to keep people on the site.
Okay, great. Deidre, it seems to me that the question of preparation of the sales team, do you have a specific digital media kit and a print media kit, or do you have a combined media kit with both print and digital data? Talk to us about how you use your media kit in the sales process.
It's combined. And so it's one that I inherited, and we've tweaked it since then to even add local TV programming that we're including as a part of TSD TV that we plan on placing on our website. What Brandon talked about is so critical, Dr. Chavez, in terms of our website is not a good website. We're doing an RFP right now to update and refresh it. But a part of that, we're going to roll out and launch a revised TSD TV, which is a part of our digital platform. And excited about that because we get so many incredible interview opportunities, and money talks, dialogue with Deidre, a number of different types of programs that we're going to have as a part of our digital platform. And so our team is looking at selling that now as a part of our media kit. One thing that Brandon said is so critical, and I say this often to our team: nobody does Black news like the Tri-State Defender in this market. We're unique and we're special in that regard, and that's what we sell. It's a different perspective. And as long as my sales team remembers that, the numbers continue to increase. We're not the Daily Memphian, we're not the Commercial Appeal, we're the Tri-State Defender, the voice of African Americans, people of color in this community, and we sell that. So, but to answer your question directly, yes, sir, our media kit is combined with print, digital, and TSD TV.
Very good. Tanisha, what about Real Times Media? You have a lot of different properties. Do you have a combined media kit, or do you have a media kit, say, for the Atlanta Tribune, a different media kit for the Atlanta Daily World, a different media kit for the Chicago Defender? tell us how you put your media kits together.
Absolutely. We do have individualized media kits for each of the brand just because our demographic makeup and site traffic statistics vary a little from publication to publication. But within the individual media kits, we do combine print with digital. And in most cases, we rarely make a print sale that doesn't have a digital component to it as well, because I think like most of the people on the phone have said, there is a significant missed opportunity when you don't include that digital component. We don't typically added value it because we know the value of what digital is. So again, it goes back to the CPM conversation. Yes, the overhead is low on digital, but you can't undercut yourself. So we do adhere to a minimum CPM, and we are willing to not take a piece of business if the CPM is too low, because it takes up the same amount of inventory as that customer who's willing to pay this your rates as they're listed. Something that I wanted to touch upon that Ron said about having the inventory available. A trick that has really helped us is something as simple of to help us expand our inventory while we work on audience development, is that we put our banner ads on rotators. So they rotate every 8 seconds. That gives you, instant inventory expansion because that ad auto updates to a new customer, every 8 seconds. So that's giving, as we grow the audience and the actual eyeballs, it's given us a way to sell additional inventory that we may not have, as it relates to unique viewers.
So Tanisha, and on that point, I think that's an excellent innovation. Can you explain how you does the salesperson sell it that way, that you tell the client that the ad rotates? Can you explain a little bit more how you implement that and how you sell it?
Yes, yeah, we have some clients who, and we go into it, it's part of the share of voice of the percentage of time your ad gets on a specific page. So there are some customers who want to say they want 100% on our election coverage. Those ads don't rotate, but if there's a customer who's willing to do run of sight, we do explain to them that their ad is included in a rotator amongst other advertisers.
Okay, great. Back to you, Brandon. Los Angeles is a great cultural center for Black America. In the selling proposition, something that Ron Burke said about the content, the engaging content. And I noticed in the Los Angeles Sentinel, you not only have the news of the day, but you have a heavy content on the cultural aspect as well as the sports, entertainment. It seems to be you diversified your content. Can you talk about how important that is in your selling proposition of digital?
Yeah, I think, again, it goes back like Ron was saying it too, sales, it hasn't changed in the sense of, the platform or the way we approach it. You kind of still have to stick with those old added tools, so so to answer your question, I think for us, we just try to make sure that content wise, we've approached it the way I basically do research of editors that came before me. I'm a sponge. I even look at Rolling Out. I look at Tri-State Defender. I look at all publications. I look at Washington Informer. Real Time is doing great things across the country. So I'm constantly seeing, but I think what has always made the Black press fabulous is we cover Black people the way no one does. We show how we are in society. We are what HBCUs, how we are in sports. So what I like to do is say, how do I show the best of Black Los Angeles and Black America every week? I just got to give you guys the best capsule I can. So I'm a little more unique of some people in the sense that I work as the managing editor as well as a sales and advertising executive, because I used to just be on the editorial side. But over the last, 5 to 10 years, really being on both, it has given me an understanding that the client wants to know, hey, what are you guys covering? So as long as we can, again, back to Ron's point, answer the question and get them that information quickly, which is to say, hey, we have sports. If you'd like to be in the sports, we can cover you there. If you'd like to be up in I think when Ron sells IOs, he says, hey, the client wants to be up front, and sometimes we may not be able to guarantee that. So we have to say, hey, what wiggle room do we have? So I think transparency is a word that I always say to the client. I want to be transparent. I want to make you comfortable with what you're purchasing. We have analytics that can back it up. There's third-party tracking availability now that you can't even lie to a customer. They can find a way to get the evidence. So, so I think, again, for, what I would say is an added tool and an incentive for all of us as we're growing is let's be patient in the numbers and be confident that we will always reach the audience that we're reaching, and that print audience will expand and ultimately move its way to digital. So again, sorry, Dr. Chavis, I kind of get excited and I'm all over.
That's good. That's good.
But I think, to answer your question again is for us, I like to just show variety. And I try to stay away as often as I can from when I say negative. We cover. If there's local shootings or things happen, I've sitting across from mothers who have lost a child, and those stories are hard. So we have to give people that hard news. But I'm trying to show Black business success, people running companies, local business. We launched the Taste the Soul Black Business Spotlight on our front page too, similar to, I think someone was mentioning a Tuesday business highlight, to show local business support. We have full page ad supporting those businesses. So we've even merged to show advertisers your dollars can support local businesses that need it. So with all these corporate companies trying to say they want to help Black folk nowadays, we putting them to the test and saying, here, put your dollars here. We have a campaign for you to buy a full page ad. Let's see if you want to do it. And like Tanisha said, sometimes we got to walk away. If people don't want to do business right, that's the hardest part that I do find though. But, and if they want to pay, they got to pay.
Gotcha. So Randy Fling, rolling out. I know that you've been in a lot of the discussions recently with some of these corporate executives, some of the Fortune 500 companies. Can you please share with our audience, what are you hearing? What are the trends in 2021? Where is the publishing industry going? And of course, you always have these advertising agencies out there who don't necessarily know the Black press, but and to the extent to which they know us, they always try to triage us, always try to give us a few crumbs off the corporate table, rather than that major ad buy. So Randy, just share, and then I'll go to the other panels because I'm sure you're running into some of the same phenomena that you have experienced recently in some of the corporate meetings from a sales perspective. Share what the trends are from your experience over the last several weeks and months.
Sure. From a sales perspective, I will tell everyone, try to reach high in the ad agencies and reach high in the corporations. You may be selling what's small to a large corporation, but because they are a little more sensitive these days to the plight of the Black community and the reality and beginning to understand the reality of what they have done to our community and how it fits. Not that I lead with that, but they have an understanding of it. So when you come to them, they are a little more receptive, some of them. But when you can reach someone that's a little higher up so that the word comes down to make use of these, we had a client that I won't name that we did a lot of business with one year. And then the agency really was kind of funky, and we did a good job, but and then they ended up shorting us at the end of the year by some 6 figures type money. And when I say shorted us, they cut the program, they changed the program, and then decided they didn't want to do the program, for the most expensive quarter out of 4 quarters of the year.
Was this an agency decision or a client decision?
Well, it's hard to know, but we'll say agency. I'm gonna leave it at agency. And so, then that was the year before. And so last year came, and then they kind of cut us out completely. We were able to send a letter to somebody way above who we were talking to previously. And then in the 4th quarter of this year, we suddenly got some nice money in 1 quarter that we never would have got. We would have been just out of the mix, but we sent a detailed letter to the organization saying, here's and detailed out what this agency had done.
And you sent that letter higher up, because sometimes it's where on the supply chain or decision-making chain that gets your communication, that makes a difference. Who the people who are under that,
All of a sudden the people underneath all of a sudden they sending me an IO, a very nice IO, from 2 different departments within the company. that worked out well for us. So it was a blessing. But I don't, there was something Brandon said that triggered. He talking about third party. So I think all the publishers need to understand how important that whole third party tracking is when you're selling, because once again, they're going to have trackers on there. They're going to know what kind of content you're showing their ad next to. So what we did a few years ago, and I suggested to I'm just going to make the suggestion and put it out there, that you categorize the stories that include the word murder, death, rape, assault, that you may be reporting on locally. You may even be doing something. I remember, is it Gabrielle Union, I think, had a book, and she was talking about when she was sexually assaulted when she was young, and the client's ads were being blocked on that page. Even though it was a very positive and inspiring book we were writing about, the fact that the word sexual assault was on the page, their ad was being blocked by the third party and would not even show. So unfortunately, we had to recategorize that story. So we actually created a fake category that just means this is a category that we know certain types of clients don't want their ads to show next to, so that we can tell the ad when we first program it not to show up against that category. And so I suggest it's an editorial thing that has to happen as all the stories are being written. But that way, when you come across a client and Norman sends out the tags and says, hey, this client's, I know there are some double verify specifically, there are campaigns coming next month, in the next week, that involve double verify. They're going to block those ads on your site if it's against a story that has any of those words.
Well, I know that's true, because when the pandemic first hit last year, you'd be surprised. There were some major advertisers that did not want to associate their brand with the word COVID-19 or coronavirus. And of course, they've changed that now because they underestimated how widespread this pandemic was going to be. They tried to isolate themselves. And so a lot of times we have to inform the potential client, potential advertising agency that, again, doesn't know the Black community like we know the Black community. And I think that sometimes in the selling process, we also have to inform what we know better than the people we're selling to, about our community and about what works and what doesn't work.
And some clients listen in agencies and some don't as well. So you want to be prepared. Like I said, I know for everybody on this that'll be seeing this during the conference, Norman has campaigns that I know have double verify on them that are going to be being placed. And you want to be, if you can separate so that you don't put it against certain of your stories, you want to do that.
Right, and Randy, I think you need to explain, because of double verify in a lot of these digital campaigns, you will not get credit.
Right.
The client would say, well, no, we're not going to pay you for that because it was associated with content that was on our list of words, of keywords, search engine search that says no. So all that is part of the preparation, not only in the selling process, but something Ron Burke says, that after you sell, you got to execute. You got to make sure that we fulfill the proposition of the sale.
Yeah, because you've wasted your ad impression. You show 100,000 ad impressions, but they're only counting 70,000 of them. You've lost money that you could have put somebody else in because you weren't able to target it separately, and have your content categorized so that you can steer those ads away from it.
All right. So thank you, Randy. Ron Burke, tell us what you heard from some of our major advertisers about the whole issue of quote unquote digital first versus print first.
Advertisers right now, there's still a lot of advertisers who understand the value of print, because there's still a lot of people who like to feel that ink between their fingers, okay? That's something that's, well, we hope never goes away. But Dr. Chavis, I'll just call attention to one of our advertisers, who we will remain nameless, who basically told us, listen, I understand the value of your content. I understand the value of your audience. He says, but I want to keep giving you the same money I've been giving you year over year, but 2/3 of my print budget is going to be cut. The main reason is because people who measure these dollars, measure return on their investment, have determined that there is no way that you can measure the effectiveness of print. I can tell you all day long, Mr. Advertiser, your ad ran on page 5. But if you ask me how many people, I can tell you that 25,000 people read the paper, but I can never say how many people read page 5, you see. So a lot of print dollars are going away because they can't measure it, but they can measure digital. They can measure the engagement. They can measure the number of impressions, which means the number of people who saw the ad. They can measure the clicks, how many times people clicked on the ads. They can even measure click-throughs, where they, not only did they click on the ad, but they actually performed a task the advertiser wanted them to do. And going back to something that Randy said, with the double verify, yes, we do have advertisers that use double verify, these third-party tracking and what have you, and it's called brand safety. They don't want to be associated with certain things. And we fight, and I'm also so glad that he mentioned Norman. Norman Rich, as many of you know, is our digital guru for our NNPA. He built the NNPA network. And we fight all the time with our advertisers to remind them that we're news organizations. All of these advertisers it's not like they're only advertising with us. They're advertising in other digital networks. And many of them are not news organizations. So they don't have the same issues with brand safety, or keywords. We're news organizations. I can tell you, we had one client a couple years ago when they had the protest in Charlottesville that did not want their ad. We didn't get paid for ads that mentioned the word Charlottesville. During that time, half of the articles that were written on NNPA sites mentioned Charlottesville because of what happened in Charlottesville. You see, so these are things that we're constantly having to remind advertisers about, and I think they're coming around, and there's new technologies that will help us to get around that.
Okay, very good. Deidre, again, before we have about 15 more minutes before we close out, and I wanted to give each of you an opportunity before we close this panel. From the new Tri-State Defender perspective, Deidre, what is your outlook for the future in 2021? Do you see an increase in digital ad sales, or an increase in print, or both? What's your perspective? What's your forecast?
Well, our forecast for the new Tri-State Defender is that during COVID, we had to reduce our print by 50%. I mean, it hit us pretty hard. So our goal is to get back up, Dr. Chavez, to where we were in 2021 and to push digital. We're really trying to make our website platform more subscription-based for those unique articles. And people are subscribing so they can see those unique articles. So we feel real good about that. But a big push is going to be to try and get back up to the number where we were and to increase our digital platform. And to Randy's point, I wear a unique hat with the new Tri-State Defender. Right now, on an interim basis, I'm handling sales, but I've been an agency owner for 18 years. And so, being able to experience what you have talked about in terms of, and I won't name the client, but what the client tried to do to us was, and it's COVID related, and we know that COVID is hitting the African American community harder than any other community. And it was $1 million contract, and they offered us a 1/4 page black and white ad, and every other publication full page, half page ads. So being who I am, I call the owner of the organization and say, really? So, you have to go to that top level. And let me just say that next week, we started getting half page and full page ads because you have to challenge it. So, so excited about the opportunity for the new Tri-State Defender. And yes, we're going to increase our digital and get back to where we were on our print. That's our forecast.
Very good, very good. Tanisha, What is the forecast of Real Times Media?
For us collectively, print is our heartbeat. It always, has been and will continue to be. But for us, we are laser focused on doubling down on digital. And for us, digital isn't just banner ads on our websites. We have, with COVID-19, we have pivoted hard into the virtual event space. Where we're having roundtable discussions, we're having virtual award ceremonies, and for us, all of that is digital inventory for sale. Another area that we are definitely focused on is the branded content opportunity. There are themes in our community: social justice, wealth management, building wealth. There are topics that only we can speak on authoritatively from an African American experience in our markets, and there are customers who want to be associated with that. So it may not be a brand, it may not be a banner ad, but if we do a series around the health disparities in our community, I don't know why our local health insurance plan doesn't want to underwrite that and be affiliated with that. So yes, we will maintain our print efforts because, again, it's our heart blood, but we are 100%, laser focused on digital and in all aspects: social media, newsletter development. Do we want to go to a subscription model, as Deidre mentioned? So that is where we'll be racing towards in 2021.
Very good, very good. I know, Brandon, the COVID-19 hit the taste of so hard in 2020. What are you planning for 2021? And how do you see the digital sales for the Los Angeles Center and the LA Watch Times prospectively going forward?
Yeah. Thank you for that, Dr. Chavis. Yeah, well, Taste the Soul, as many may be familiar with or not, it's one of the largest street festivals in the country, one-day festivals. We average over about 350,000 to 400,000 people on one day on Crenshaw Boulevard. It was really was an event that really reintroduced us, as I would say, to a new generation of people, and even showed sponsors in corporate America kind of the effect of the Los Angeles Sentinel, LA Watch Times, and who, Bakewell Media and just the outreach. And you've been there, Dr. Chavis, yes. Because sometimes when you try to sell those things to advertisers, they don't believe it, and it's like, how do you showcase those analytics? You got to see it to believe it, but that is that audience that I consider an NNPA audience that we reach across the country. That audience is in every market around the country, but to answer your question, the Taste of Soul went virtual this year. It was a big success. We still partnered with Hyundai, and it all worked out. And I think, just like Tanisha said, it's really opened our eyes to say, wait a second, there's an opportunity in this virtual space to come up with original content. So we're looking similar, as everyone's talking about, kind of continuously evolving, as I would say, rather than say rebranding, is looking at content. And, myself, I've kind of taken a back seat dealing with sales and a lot more on the administrative side, but just as Deidre, it sounds like you have a show as well, putting myself back out there and trying to do interviews. But we do have a great archive of interviews. I have interviews with Snoop Dogg, Dave Roberts of the Dodgers. We're at the Grammy red carpets, and we're sitting down with Ava DuVernay. So all of this rich content is in that digital space. So we just want people to know that, hey, when you're willing to sit down and scroll your phone, come check out the LA Sentinel and get a taste of Black Los Angeles and Black America. But I think for sales, because this is a digital conversation, is Taste of Soul. There's still an opportunity, as we partnered with artists to do virtual concerts. We did virtual roundtables, as this is an environment of a virtual roundtable that we're doing.
Yes.
These are the things that we can continue to do. So I'm looking forward to that. And sales, to second what Tanisha said, we still love print. And I think this COVID space is reminding everyone to get something in the mail. You might appreciate it because you can't leave your house. So we should all even look at that as maybe a little trigger of being somewhat creative. But again, Randy said 90% of his traffic's mobile, 85% is mobile for us. We can't ignore the numbers. So we're just trying to continuously show the client that we're here. Final note on agencies. I have to say this as something I wouldn't say fighting agencies, but what I like to say is we have to have that conversation. and it has to be direct and sometimes uncomfortable. And the reality is we cannot be undersold. We cannot be undervalued. In a lot of these agencies, and you guys know who you are, you don't even know what you're selling. And we have to reintroduce these people to who we are as an individual client, in addition to a collective to help Ron out. Ron, you're doing an excellent job, by the way. Thank you for everything. And thank you, Norman. But thank you, Dr. Chavis, and thank all these panelists. But we're going to continue to evolve and maturate in that space. So thank you, everybody.
Very good, very good. Randy, what's your perspective, forecast for 2021? We're now getting ready to go into Black History Month. Tell us what you see over the next second and third, fourth quarter.
Well, first of all, Brandon made me hungry thinking about Taste the Soul right now. And I'm like, how could he do it virtually? Because we can't eat no food. but on a serious note, as it relates to moving forward this year, we are doing similar to what Tanisha said about doubling down on digital, doubling down hard on digital in terms of making sure that we can, as best we can, stay full. Because even with campaigns, and I know we have maybe more traffic than some people, but we don't always have a campaign running. So there's times when you don't have as much as you would like. So the fact is, you could have a great campaign for 2 months, and then or 2 or 3 campaigns running, but then the timing is such that that next month you really don't have those same campaigns running, whether that's national or local. And so, for us, it's like there's still a lot that's left, that's missing when we don't have enough campaigns sold. So it's like sales, you sell some more. For us also, we're going to be doing a little more television. I know Tri-State, they're doing their TV, and we're going to be doing some more things with TV on our site and over the air, actually, here in Atlanta. So we're going to actually, move even further into TV with an over-the-air channel in second quarter of this year. So for us, again, it's one more thing to sell. So it's kind of like another Chicago Defender has a multiple of media kits. We're really moving in that direction to be able to have some television to go along with digital, to go along with print, to be able to sell to people. So I think 2021, most companies who didn't spend their budgets in 2020 through confusion, not knowing what to do, everybody kind of put a big break on things. I think there's an opportunity, and I do believe there's a bigger opportunity maybe than there's ever been for Black media to actually get a piece of it, because people are sensitive to the reality that we are different, and that and for some of them that it's important that we're different. I think they've always known we're different and have a different clientele and audience. I just don't think they've always valued it. And I just think at least some more are valuing it and understanding it, or trying to understand it in ways that they haven't in the past. And most media buyers at ad agencies are in their 20s, and so in some ways they're more open to it, more multicultural than in the past. So I think it bodes well for the industry.
Very good, very good. Ron Burke, what do you see as a forecast for 2021?
So I think the future is bright for us, for Black media, and the events over the summer, the social injustice, racial injustice, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, so forth and so on. It resurfaced something that we've all known, that there is systematic racism that exists in this country. And so now you have a lot of organizations, people, companies, so forth and so on, that are at least paying lip service to the fact that needs to change. And I think that there's a lot of new interest in doing business with the African American community. So NNPA, in my opinion, is well positioned to take advantage of that. You have a lot of these companies that committed, $100 million or however many millions of dollars to, combat social and racial injustice. You have the Facebooks, the Googles, the Knight Foundation, Democracy Fund, so forth and so on, who have come up with these grant opportunities to help local media, and our papers are considered local media with digital transformation. So all of those are positives. So we just need to make sure, all of us just need to make sure that we're paying attention to the opportunities and see if the opportunity is right for you to go after it. And there's people out here that will help you to write a grant, if you need that. So I think again, I think the future is bright for NNPA, and my hat is off to you, Dr. Chavis. We haven't mentioned what we're doing as an organization, NNPA, with the live streams that we created, out of necessity for COVID, and now that the daily internet TV, Facebook Live that we're doing, that's getting huge attention. I mean, we've interviewed some of the top people in the medical industry, and other celebrities as well. And I know you have on tap, several new people, from the Biden administration. So again, I'll just summarize and say I think the future is bright and there's opportunities out there.
Very good. Well, we want to thank each of you for sharing what you see as some of the best practices to sell digital ads for the Black press of America. And certainly each of you represent some of our best media companies, our best newspapers, our best members of the NNPA. You are representative of a generation and generations, intergenerational. Many of our publications are first, second, and third generation family-owned newspapers. But this subject matter has been very key about digital ad sales. So we're going to archive, once this program is edited, we're going to archive it so that people who are at the Midwinter Conference will certainly benefit from it. But we also, for those who may miss the conference, you'll be able to see this content. So I would like to thank Deidre Malone, new Tri-State Defender, Tanisha Leonard from Real Times Media, Brandon Brooks from the Los Angeles Sentinel and the LA Watch Times, Randy Fling from Rolling Out, and certainly Ron Burke from the Washington Informer and from the National Newspaper Publishers Association headquarters. I'm Benjamin F. Chavis Jr. Thank you for listening. May God continue to bless the Black press of America. All right, we'd like to thank everybody.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.
We
Thanks for
appreciate
having
you.
me. Thanks.
Everybody have a blessed week.
Yeah,
You too.
absolutely.
Hey.
Take care.
Randy, I like the new look, Randy.
That's my Corona fro. It's funny. I got to tell this right quick. I walked into my dentist's office and the lady say, "Mr. Flynn, you look like you just woke up, got out of bed." And it was 6 o'clock in the evening. I said, "Stop." I say, "Stop telling your age." I say, "Back when you and me was young, it had to be even and smooth." I said, "I had one of those in high school and college." I say, "The young people, that's not how they wear it no more." I said, "I went to my niece's baby shower. They thought I was it. They said, 'Oh, we love your hair.'" They literally, but they're in their 30s. They're 30s.
Randy, I had the conversation with my girlfriend. Same thing. We said it. She was talking about her nephew. I said it's changed. He goes to school. Same. I said nowadays you're not cool if you don't do it.
If you don't do it, right? So
if you feel like let it just hang out. You
can't do no smooth.
I had to do the same thing. So don't mind me.
All right.
Guys, there's something to be said for virtual and there's something to be said for in person. I miss y'all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. There's definitely, I miss it too. I
do want to thank Dr. Chavis and Ron before you go. Thank you for this. And, and Randy, I'd love to pick both you and Ron's brains on, when I can, because both of you deal with it on a real sophisticated level. But so I appreciate everything. But anytime that I can be of assistance, just let me know. But God bless you guys.
All right.
Be happy to, Brandon. Reach out for me. I'm Randy at Rolling Out. So
okay.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Chavis.
All right. Thank you so much. God bless everybody. Thank you.
You got it.
Hi, my name is Andre Jones, and just want to welcome everyone to this awesome presentation on how to adapt and rebuild your small business during COVID-19. I'm a business development officer with the bank and been with the bank for 5 years and in the banking industry for 10 years and cover the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. And so we're excited to come to you with you today and go over this presentation to really help your business grow and expand through some of these challenging times. And just so you can have an idea of what we're going to be covering today, we're going to go over four main parts of the presentation that we believe will be most beneficial for you and your small business. The first thing we're going to look at is insight. We're going to look at the insight of the industry. We're going to look at insight as far as your business is concerned, and having the ability to really dive in and grasp what's going on right now in this present business environment. The second thing we're going to take a look at is business strategy. Right? What's changed from how you used to do business prior to COVID-19 happening? What's going on in the environment? What's going on in the market? And so we're going to dig a little bit into business strategy. What do you need to pivot and do differently that you were not doing before? And then the third thing we're going to take a look at is connections. What connections do you have in the industry? That can be through mentors. It can be through colleagues. We're going to give you some ideas on how to build your connections and make them stronger during this time in the pandemic. And then the last piece that we're going to look at, which everybody loves to talk about, is show me the money. We're going to look at the money, how you can increase your cash flow. We're going to give you a ton of resources that are going to assist you in identifying probably outside sources where you can get more money to kind of boost your business up during this time. So we have a great presentation set for you. And I'm going to kick it over to my wonderful colleague, Camille. Camille, I'm going to kick it over to you to talk about insights.
Andre, thank you. Yes, my name is Camille Simpkins, and I, like Andre, am a business development officer here at Wells Fargo. When we talk about insights, the first thing that I want to bring to your attention is that this too shall pass. It's been my guiding principle during this whole pandemic. And as far reaching as this may sound, the past does give us insight into the future.
Yeah.
We all know this to be true. In witness of the dot-com bubble and the Great Recession brought on by the mortgage crisis, resilience is possible through pivoting the design of your business. Fluid action towards the needs of your business community is necessary to regrow and or maintain your business.
And I think that's so on point, Camille. I mean, we talk about insight. I mean, communicating, even if something simple as a digital newsletter with your customers, right? I think customers need more insight now than ever, because prior to COVID, people kind of went on and did their own thing, but the ability to communicate is so important. When we look at business strategy, let's talk about business strategy for a little bit, real quickly. A couple of key points that we have here in the presentation is really list how your customers have changed. You know, talk about what's different. You know, a lot of customers these days, maybe you have to do contactless. Everybody's doing something different as far as where they don't have to take cash into the business, and they want to kind of scan it through merchant service. But I think coming up with a business strategy that's different now as opposed to before the pandemic is so critical and so important. And really revisiting that business proposition, you know, maybe how you did business before as far as what the value was is different. Maybe speed now is your new business proposition, you know, where customers don't have to necessarily come into stores. Camilla, and she has a story she can share, but I have a customer who right now they're a restaurant, and instead of people coming in, because we know a lot of restaurants have been closed, they've totally revalued and repackaged how they create value to the customer by bringing the food out to the customer curbside. And that was an adjustment for them, but they had to change their business strategy. So we want to encourage you to take a look at your business proposition and see how you can add value to the customer and still be profitable at the same time. Camille, I think you had a story you shared with me earlier about business strategy.
Yes, and you bring up a great point when we talk about updating the business strategy. Your value proposition should really reflect how you plan to pivot. It should be relevant to the type of outreach activity. And in crafting your value proposition, ask yourself, what do your customers value most about you? Why will they decide or have decided to become a customer? And how to improve your process to attract new customers. I have a dental practice that was experiencing turnover because their dental assistants were uncomfortable with in-house appointments. So what the dentist decided to do was to make house calls to senior citizens, the at-risk population who are at risk at contracting COVID-19. So in pivoting her business, she decided to invest in equipment that would allow for her to do in-home visits. She provides them with the negative COVID testing for herself prior to that appointment, but it's giving her an opportunity to still remain, still influence her industry, but more important, to still stay relevant with her customer base, and more importantly, provide a humanistic approach to those that need the service but aren't comfortable venturing outside of their homes because of their accessibility to COVID-19. And, it's been doing great for her. And she had to realize that there needed to be a change in her structure, and she utilized social media in order to get the word out there. She, did a monthly newsletter so that all of her customers were aware of what was taking place. Those, can choose to have the service in their homes, and those can choose not to. So she definitely pivoted and is increasing her bottom line, although she was challenged by, employee turnover in the beginning.
I love that, Camille, and I think that's I think that's a great example when we look at a business pivoting and adjusting their proposition and value statement and looking at new strategies. And again, I always tell clients, run it by some of your other employees. Employees that are in business also have the heartbeat of the customer base, or run it by family members, something as simple as that, or run it by other colleagues. I think that's so critical and so important. But I think the key is not to be stuck in an old model during this time, and be flexible and be open to adjustment and making change. So I think that's a phenomenal example, which was a nice segue into our next point. The number 3 is connections. I think connections is huge, and connections can come in all different forms, shapes, and fashions. I think the top one would be a mentor, and we always suggest entrepreneurs to get a mentor. Find someone who has possibly been through some tough and some challenging times. Also find someone who may be a colleague. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who has bigger profits than you, but maybe they're just a colleague and they may do a piece of the business a little bit more strategic than you do. But we always encourage people, find a mentor, get connected, because one thing I can assure you, that during this time, you cannot get through this by yourself. There needs to be partnership and collaboration. I think is more important now, more than ever. Which also, Kim, I know we were talking earlier about social media. Whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter, building some kind of social media presence. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yes, definitely. So one of the things that you want to do is create a list of your top customers and also your competitors.
Oh, that's a good
It's
one.
important for you
Competitors.
to understand, correct. It's important for you to understand the position that your competitors are currently in, because it can allow for you to either supplement or enhance your offering. It's okay to take a look at their customer reviews. And in reviewing their customer reviews, you can then speak to what your company's strength is and maybe enhance a particular area of your business that your competitor may have challenges with. And share this with your network. There is, like Andre said, LinkedIn. More of my customers are starting to use Instagram Live. It
Yeah.
gives you an opportunity to reach a larger audience. One that I've just started to utilize is called Clubhouse, and it's fairly new. It's in its beta testing stage. You have to be invited, but it allows for you to enter into these chat rooms to discuss some of the challenges that you're having within your business, and then also recognize and celebrate some of your successes. So it's okay to understand what your competition is doing, because it will just propel you closer to what makes you stand out from the competition. So not just your customers, but your competition as well.
I love it. Celebrate those wins, right? I love it. And a lot of businesses forget, to celebrate the wins. Let people see you celebrating the wins. Do a post on Instagram. LinkedIn has definitely been a super game changer. Like you said, Clubhouse is
Yes.
new in the scene, but I hear a lot of great things about that as well. The last thing that we're going to talk about that we believe is going to help you really be successful during this time, which everybody loves to talk about, is capital consideration, right? Everybody likes to talk about where's the money.
Yes.
But one of the things,
Where's the money?
where's the money? Show me the money. One of the things Camille and I both have seen is that while a lot of businesses may think they need to get a loan, they can do some things to improve the current cash flow that they're experiencing. Maybe it's saving and not outsourcing so much, or maybe it's getting paid earlier, and not waiting for payment, maybe ACH or using treasury management. So we always encourage businesses before they go and try to get a loan and think that's the only solution. Look internal. There are things that you can do internal. There's savings that you can implement internally that can help you also increase cash flow. Camille, you want to jump in on that? I know we talked about a couple of points as well.
Yes, and you mentioned this earlier when we talked about, having a mentor. Your relationship with your bank should not just be about products and services. There should
That's great.
be weekly, monthly, and quarterly touch points where you're discussing industry outlook and trends. What's important about having a relationship with your bank that allows for you to get up-to-date and real-time information and resources. So when you're looking to decide what your efficiency control should look like, those conversations with your bank will allow for you to look at others in your industry and what they have done to increase their bottom line. Because sometimes at the end of the day, it's not about additional funding sources. Sometimes you are your best source, and it's just a matter of tweaking some of the ways in which you take payments, some of the ways in which you make your payments. That would definitely increase your cash flow opportunities.
I think that's awesome. And I think the last point that we can kind of really bring it home is, wellsfargoworks.com is a great site that you can go to get resources. We know everybody wants more information on the PPP. You can go there as well. The SBA is a great website that you can go to get more information. So again, when you go to wellsfargoworks.com, there's a ton of information and links on our site to help you kind of navigate through this. But we hope this was helpful and we hope it was beneficial. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We're very grateful to all of our corporate partners and sponsors for helping us to make the virtual NMPA Midwinter Training Conference possible. I want to list their names one more time. General Motors, Pfizer Rare Disease, Reynolds American, RAI, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Those are our partners. Our sponsors for our Midwinter Conference have been AARP, Wells Fargo, the American Petroleum Institute, API, Zillow, Nissan, Zynga Communications, and the United Auto Workers. And we also had a sponsorship from Facebook. We thank all of our sponsors and we thank all of our partners.
Hi, I'm Karen Carter Richards, Chairman of the Board for the National Newspaper Publishers Association. We are very thankful for your presence and participation in this year's Midwinter Training Conference. During the past 2 days, we have been able to receive and share virtually important information that we can use to strengthen our businesses and to better serve our communities with the news that we need. We have started 2021 with a renewed sense of commitment and rededication to the mission of the Black Press of America. As we have for the past 194 years since Freedom's Journal was first published in New York in March of 1827, the Black press has remained on the front lines of our long struggle for equality and freedom. We have come a mighty long way, but we still have much more to do and to achieve. We have been meeting and learning together virtually. We will continue to use technology so that we can stay in touch with each other. Now, as we prepare to conclude the conference, I want to take this opportunity once again to thank each of you for keeping the faith, for keeping the Black press viable, and for representing the best interests of Black America. The NMPA is moving forward in 2021. Even in the face of this terrible pandemic, we are more determined than ever before to keep publishing and to distribute the truth, the facts, and the news. Finally, the video of the Midwinter Conference will remain posted on our website so that others can share the information we have received. Now stay tuned, because tonight we will close the conference out with more produced entertainment that represents the value and the spirit of the Black press.
Hi, I'm Terry Jones, publisher of New Orleans Data News Weekly and chairman of the National Newspaper Publishers Association Convention Planning Committee. We hope that what you've received over the last 2 days has been beneficial to you and to your publication. The Black Press of America speaks and continues to speak truth to power. The new administration in Washington, D.C. truly needs a strong Black press. We believe that the information that we've disseminated over the last 2 days has made our newspapers stronger to work harder in our communities across the nation. We especially thank all our corporate partners, our sponsors, and our advertisers for supporting us throughout the years and moving forward. It is our hope and prayer that we push forward progressively throughout the years. Thank you for your time and energy over the last 2 days. On behalf of the NMPA Convention Planning Committee, God bless and be safe.
We will conclude our Midwinter Training Conference tonight with special performance from recording artist Mickey Howard. Looking forward to her performance. We also will be giving the 2021 Lifetime Achievement Award to our distinguished publisher, John Warren, the Reverend Dr. John Warren, who publishes the San Diego Voice and Viewpoint. John well deserves our Lifetime Achievement Award from the NMPA. So all that begins tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So please come back and join us for the Lifetime Achievement Award to John Warren and a special recording artist performance by Mickey Howard. Thank you so much.